President.
I recognize the Minority Whip.
Mr. President, millions of Americans better check their mailbox the next week or two. There's some bad news. Letters are being sent by health insurance companies that are trying to give some kind of a warning to these families about what's going to happen to their health insurance premiums because of the big, beautiful Trump budget bill. One family in Illinois tells the story. Leanne Safford and her husband, Lori. Right now, Leanne and Lori pay $278 a month for health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. But starting January 1st, their monthly premiums, now get this, jump from $278 a month to $1,800 a month, a 550% increase. $1,500 more coming out of the paychecks of Lori and Leanne. Why is this happening? Because we have a system, or had a system, that provided subsidies and tax credits to working families so that they could afford their health insurance. However, in the big, beautiful budget bill of Donald Trump, passed with every Republican voting for it, every Democrat voting against it, these subsidies and credits started to disappear. Thanks to President Biden and a Democratic Congress, those credits were there for families that they could count on them. Because of the Republican decision with President Trump to give tax breaks to the wealthiest people in America, they cut back on the premium assistance that was available to the Safford family. These credits had opened the door to millions of working and middle-class Americans like Leanne and Lori to be able to afford quality health insurance. Now they've got to make a choice. This is a lot of money. $1,500 a month? Millions of Americans will decide. Are we going to cut back on essentials like food and dental, or switch to a higher deductible plan, more money out of pocket if anybody gets sick? Leanne said, quote, "Right now we're making a decision based on being relatively healthy. But as we all know, with health, it could change in a day." That's the same bind that millions of Americans are going to face because of the Republican decision to give a tax break to the wealthiest people in America. According to the Congressional Budget Office, more than 4 million American families are going to lose their health insurance if congressional Republicans allow these subsidies to expire. And that's what's going to happen if we don't change, including more than 100,000 in my state of Illinois. It doesn't have to be this way. We can extend these tax credits and still fund government. I remember a time in this chamber when Democrats and Republicans came together on a bipartisan basis when real family challenges existed and tried to solve the problem. We just don't have that spirit here anymore. They've decided on the Republican side we're going to give tax breaks to these wealthy people, even at the expense of working families. And we have a president hell-bent on abusing his power and a Republican Congress that refuse to disagree with him. Earlier this year, President Trump and Republicans in Congress signed into law this big, beautiful bill. Cuts nearly $1 trillion from programs like Medicaid. What is Medicaid important for? Limited income families and retired individuals. This big, beautiful Republican budget bill cuts nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid and $300 billion from the food stamp program, now known as SNAP. As a result of their bill, the Republican bill, more than 10 million Americans will lose their health coverage. Ever had a child who was sick and no health insurance? I have. You'll never forget it as long as you live. This is separate from 4 million others who stand to lose their health coverage if the Republicans continue to block our efforts with the ACA tax credit. It seems Republicans in Congress are fine adding more than $3 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years to pay for those tax cuts, but they draw the line at extending health care to millions of hardworking Americans. The math is clear. Republicans don't have the votes to force this extreme agenda. Governing requires input from both sides. We're taking a stand for this family and millions more just like them. When they get the jolt of the news of where their health insurance premium is going to go, where do they turn? I hope they can turn to Congress and members of the Senate who actually care for working families. If we refuse to do the job, Leanne and Lori are going to pay the price. Let's be clear. Democrats stand ready to negotiate on a fair, bipartisan basis. The only reason we're staring at this shutdown is because Republicans have refused to come to the table. There was a meeting in the White House today. Don't let it be the last one. Let's come together and fix this health care problem for America's working families. The president on Fox News said last week, don't even bother dealing with the Democrats. Well, the president's wrong. We're in this together. We need to solve this problem together. If the government shuts down, it will be because of President Trump walking away from a major challenge facing working families. I yield the floor.